grateful, an alcoholic, and completely and utterly powerless over alcohol. And because of this program and the 12 steps, I've been connected to the power of God. And yeah, just super grateful to be here with you tonight, Bill. Yay. My favorite place to be on a Monday. And as you can see, I got my happy juice on. So we got a long talk. All right. We are on page 41, just to refresh where we were at. We're at the bottom of the page 41, the last paragraph. We have been looking at the kind of thinking that precedes the first drink and the reservations that some of us have when we come in here, i.e., if I understand this disease, I'll be fine. I don't need to do what you guys do. I don't need to do this 12-step program. I don't need to sponsor. I don't need to have a sponsor. I got God, he's my sponsor. Or maybe I'm not as bad as you guys are because I haven't lost everything that you did. Or we've been looking at that, and we've been looking at that strange mental blank spot we have, that no matter how bad it's got or how much we've lost, it's not enough for us to stay away from that first drink. So we've just gone through Fred. We've gone through how he came to the rooms, or at least how the rooms found him, the AAs found him. They spoke to him about the disease of alcoholism, which is the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body, and the spiritual malady. And he was like, yeah, cool, I got this. And Fred had no issues. He had a good life. He was well off. He had a family. Everything was awesome. So he wasn't suffering from any of the, yeah. Anyway, and then he went out drinking. Self-knowledge availed him nothing. And he ended up in a blackout spree where he was being driven around New York in a taxi cab for a couple of days when he should have actually been greeted by his wife. So now he's gone back to, he's in hospital. He's desperate to see the AAs. He told them about what happened from leaving them to where he is now. And now we're going to just continue with the rest of his story. Now we're going to start looking at what he comes to realize. We start seeing the sanity return as he starts realizing that he has a disease. He has an alcoholic mind. Let's go. Page 41. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over that evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatever against the first drink. This time, I had not even thought of the consequences at all. I just want to stop there. There's two very pertinent issues that are raised here. He says, I made no fight whatever against the first drink, but he had a really good idea of what alcoholism was about. He was quite happy. He was a very intelligent man, stable, intelligent. He got everything that explained to him. He knew that was it. He's not going to drink. And he had decided not to drink at all, not even to taper off or anything. But look here, what does the book say about that, about our self-will and our resistance toward that first drink? Let's go see. Page 89. Sorry, I'm just checking up. 89, the first line there. It says that what ensures immunity from drinking is intensive work with other alcoholics. Now, Fred had gone out, he'd been to a couple of meetings, heard what he had to hear, and went and lived life as normal. All right? So there was no immunity to that first drink. No immunity. And I'm going to hammer on that. I'm on a mission now. I'm going to hammer on the fact that we are in a 12-step program. That means that you work the 12-step. That our life depends on that. All right? Okay. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a tangent today. Bear with me. The second thing I want to raise here is that he said, this time I had not thought of the consequences at all. What does that mean? Page 30, the second paragraph, talks about pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. The places we go when we black out, when we drink, when we black out from rage, when the lustful thoughts hijack our brains, where the food thoughts hijack our brains. 3 days later, we've binged on everything. We've racked our credit card up to buy all the fast food there is. We've been in and out of the massage parlors. We don't remember that stuff. We don't remember what had happened. We don't remember where this disease takes us. Bill.
Nadia. So sometimes I tell myself if I could get to where this guy got drinking and sobriety, I'd be batting 1,000. But that's if I look at the circumstances, right? This guy's a businessman. He's successful. He knows how to go out of town, how to get a room. We go back to the page before this on 40. It said he felt that he had every right to be self-confident that it would only be a matter of exercising his willpower and keeping on guard. And here he says, as soon as I regained my ability to think straight, I had been off guard. I had not even made no fight whatever. So the very two things that he knew to combat alcoholism, but look at what happened when he was able to easily on the previous page refuse the drinks that were offered to him. Remember what Bill Wilson said. He had quit. Now he had what it takes. He could laugh at the gin mills. And my sponsor told me something, and this is very indicative of alcoholism. That last one was a doozy, and I'm not going to let that happen again. And then what alcoholics begin to do is give themselves a test that they can pass. So he might go somewhere where there's no heavy drinkers. And if they offer him a cocktail, he knows he's only getting one, he's going to refuse it with ease. Because to take a drink, knowing that I'm going to open that would be torture if I can't get the second one. So let me skip the first one. But he had not been on guard. He had had no defense against the first drink and didn't know it. And he had been easily able to refuse alcohol. Maybe he was just making too big of a deal, this thing. Maybe it really wasn't as bad as the doctor suggested on the previous page. So it's important to see the way I'm under the influence of alcohol, even if it's not in my system. How many people do we meet in the fellowship that join the pool league, the bowling league, the dart league? They don't play pool, they don't bowl, and they can't stand throwing darts. But I want to be where the atmosphere is. I'm under the influence of the entire package, the lifestyle, the drinking, the glasses, the darkness. When they talk about an entire psychic change, what I submerge or submit my mind to, I've got to have a new atmosphere. There's not a good chance. Very few people get sober working in a liquor store. Some of them can go back to that profession. I'm not saying that alcohol's the problem, but it's very difficult if it's within arm's reach and a problem confronts me over the phone or in my emotion or whatnot. This guy had been sober for a couple months at this time.
Thanks, Bill. It also says in step 5, a little later on in the book, when we do get there next year, it says that step 5, we begin to have a spiritual experience. We begin. And if you know, we'll talk about the steps a little later. Like you can make a beginning, you can make a beginning, you can make a beginning, but it has little or permanent lasting effect unless at once followed by the rest of the program. It's 4 through to 9. And then living in steps 10, 11, and 12. So that was Fred's, exactly like Bill's saying now. That's where he was. He had a good idea and he'd walked away, not acquired a spiritual way of living at all. He says here, this time I had not thought of the consequences at all. I had commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. I now remembered. Now he remembers. Now, after he's beaten to a pulp through the ringer, now he remembers what his alcoholic friends told him. How they had prophesied. Why did they have that power to prophesize? Because I'm telling you now, if I sit with an alcoholic and they walk out of my presence and they say, it's fine, I got this. It's a matter of days. And I know I'm going to get a phone call again. I know it. I know it in my, and I don't wish it on them. Please don't think for a second. But if you've sat in my company and you've conceded that you're an alcoholic, and you walk away and you don't continue with the work and I don't see you again, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I can prophesize that it's not going to be long that you're going to call me because you've had a drink, because that's what we do. We are alcoholics. We will drink unless we have a spiritual solution between me and a drink. Unless I have God between me and a drink, I am going to drink. And that's why they had the leisure to prophesy that he had an alcoholic mind and that he would drink because he had an alcoholic mind. And what is that? There's a beautiful description on page 30. An alcoholic mind centers around, it says, the idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many will pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. Those three beautiful sentences perfectly succinctly describe an alcoholic mind. It's going to be different next time. I'm going to, yeah, let's also get honest here with each other. I didn't want to drink like normal people. That's boring. I wanted to drink the way I drank, but I wanted to look like they did. I wanted to act the way they did. Not peeing behind dumpsters, vomiting for 3 days, sounding like a water buffalo, waking up in strange beds, losing everything. I didn't want that. I didn't want those. I wanted to drink the way I drank and look the way they did. Not you all, because I'm sure you've also got some awesome stories.
Nadia, when we make that
Yep.
statement, we act like there's something wrong with people who don't have an abnormal reaction to alcohol. So when you make the statement as I didn't want to drink like normal people, if we got the same effect they did, we very well may like to drink like normal people, but we're different. When the doctor suggests, there's an important statement, and I always realize that you hear from a lot of alcoholics, and I think it's talked about in the 12 and 12 when Bill calls it that sense of anxious apartness.
Yes.
And here's what Bill says when he's talking about the letter that Dr. Silkworth gave us, and then asked him to write another one. We who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body is as abnormal as the mind, because the condition we suffered from, where we got great relief when we first discovered alcohol, was not really happening for most of us. It was a story in our head that was going on that wasn't true. Now, there are a lot of people that come from a lot of things that happened to them, and they turned out quite differently. But we live up. I was listening to a guy today said something on a meeting. I've heard it in AA, and I might have even reluctantly repeated it. He said, we have a built-in forgetter. And I thought, if that were true, how was it that I was able to find my way home on lunch break in the first grade? There's nothing wrong with my thinking. I was created with everything functioning normally and perfectly. Things in life that happen, fear, self-centeredness, opposition to principles or a way of living that seem to work for what we call normal people, which just mean people that are able to follow the rules. There's nothing different about us except I started to form ideas and then build on them. And as self begins to grow and fear sets in and I start believing the lie, all of a sudden I get so far removed that it looks like God made me imperfect. This is not God's fault. I've heard people in AA say God made me an alcoholic. Well, if that's the case, why would God heal you from it if he made you that way? Sometimes I think we repeat stuff that just appeals to us in our alcoholic minds without thinking. Of course, that's before we get to step 11, because it says, after all, God gave us brains to use. I suggest you use them. Don't buy into every philosophy you hear in the fellowship of AA or on the news or in the free world, because it might be skewed, might be flawed, and it might be in opposition to what God says about us. Thank you, Nadia.
That's the awesome part. We get to find out what God says about us, and we get to find out who we are as well. That's another thing. You get an identity in this book. You get to find out who we are and whose we are and why we are those things. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool deal. So stick around with us. Page 42, right at the top. They told him that he had an alcoholic mind, right? That he would, the place and time to that he would drink would come again. They go on to say here, they had said that though I did raise a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason. The liar in the head, Bill was just talking about it. The biggest, ultimate liar, that trivial reason for having a drink. Well, just that did happen and more. For what I had learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. I knew from that moment that I had an alcoholic mind. Here's the first little trickle of sanity returning to our brother Fred. I saw that willpower and self knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots. You're going to use that, you're going to hear that at pretty much every solution based meeting you go to. The strange mental blank spot. Get used to that term, make it a working part of your mind. I'd never been able to understand people who said that a problem had them hopelessly defeated. Let's go look at Bill's description of hopelessly defeated. Let's go look at it again, just for fun. Let's do a bit of a bounce. Page 8. Page 8, second paragraph. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I'd met my match. I'd been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. Rock bottom, ladies and gentlemen. This is where the magic happens. Because look here, you're going to see here, Nana, they're grinning when he comes to share this with them. We get super excited when you come and tell me that you are done, licked. You'll see us smile at you and you'll go, what the hell's wrong with these people? Because we know that's when the magic happens. That's when the magic happens. This disease, if you're an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, that's where we take this obsession. We take it to that place. It says here, I had never been able to understand people who said they had been hopelessly defeated. I knew then it was a crushing blow. Lovely. Two of the members of Alcoholics Anonymous came to see me. They grinned, which I didn't like so much. And here's the question. If you're a sponsor, and you're about to sponsor your first sponsor, or maybe your first couple, and you're like, like, what's the tips? What's the tricks, guys? Here is a stock standard question you ask these guys. Are you alcoholic and are you licked? Are you licked? Are you done? That's the question. If they say yes to both parts, get into that work as quick as you can. I had to concede both propositions. They piled on me heaps of evidence to the effect that an alcoholic mentality such as I had exhibited in Washington was a hopeless condition. They cited cases out of their own experience by the dozen. Here's a beautiful sentence that describes step 1. This process snuffed out the last flicker of conviction that I could do the job myself.
Nadia, this guy was probably much smarter and relied on his reason more than most of the alcoholics who first came around. It didn't take him a long time to admit he was hopeless. He ended up in a hospital once. He was puzzled and humiliated, baffled by this experience. He made up his mind not to drink, and he didn't drink until he drank again. For them to convince him, with him just being off guard, it was a great day. He was celebrating the emotional high of closing the big deal that was going to make his partners happy with his performance, were upon him. He had a drink, but what he recognized is that once he took a drink, how long did he stay drunk for? He ended up driving off somewhere where he didn't know where he was, right? He recognized, maybe more so than the alcoholic mindset, was what he may be referring to as not being able to recall with any certainty the suffering and the shame of being in the psych ward just a month or so ago. But he realized that once he took a drink, the experiment went so well, he had no off switch. And if he didn't have the ability to bring into his consciousness with sufficient force that I'm supposed to be on guard. I'm supposed to have exercised my willpower. He said it didn't even occur to me. He drank those drinks as carelessly as the other guy, ginger ale. So what happened is he thinks it's a good idea to have a highball with dinner. Me too. If I'm not an alcoholic, that's not an insane idea. If I'm not in touch with the fact that I'm alcoholic, that's not an insane idea. They're giving us so many different mindsets in chapter 3, and they tell us about the peculiar mental twist where my sound reasoning running parallel with the insanity can trump it. How about people who nonchalantly pick up a drink, it says, and then pound on the bar after the fourth or fifth, say, what the hell happened? What I'm saying is they're not even talking about he was drinking with intent. He was drinking without even being aware. It didn't even occur to him that he had been in the hospital a few months ago, that he had made the commitment, that he wasn't even an alcoholic. You follow what I'm saying? There are so many different mindsets in this chapter. And the more we read this, the more I realize I've exhibited every one of them over and over and over for decades. Some are plain insanity, like the jaywalker. Some are forgetfulness. You're just at a party, your kid graduated. How could it hurt? I'm going to have a drink and celebrate. Some don't even aren't aware of what was happening, how they were being led by the influence of alcohol. And some just couldn't stand to be sober one more minute and had to drink, knowing that the consequences weren't going to be good, but it didn't matter because the uncomfortability of abstinence was more painful, at least in the ostensible outcome of taking another drink. I'll deal with those consequences later, but I'm going to deal with the ones I'm feeling right now.
Powerless, Bill. You've just explained it so beautifully. Powerless. We are possessed by that thought, possessed by it, driven. Thank you. Yeah, more about alcoholism. This was a game changer. This chapter, all the others were amazing. I mean, don't, but this was the game changer. This is when I realized I had a mind that wanted to kill me. But
And one
like Bill
caveat
said,
before you go on, I'll just add this to the equation. I don't have to have experienced every one of these. I don't have to have all these different mindsets to say, wow, I'm one of you. But I'm going to tell you what, stay away from the grace long enough, continue to drink or continue to do battle on your own. And I promise you, if you're lucky to live long enough, you will experience these and maybe some that they weren't aware of at the time.
or Bill,
AA,
they could just
yeah.
follow suit with you and I and just do 3, 4 decades, lose the kids, lose the house, lose the car, lose the money. They could do that. What do you think? They could do that. Page 42, third paragraph. Then they outlined.
Naja, hold on one more thing. News bulletin. You know I'm in the
Yeah, yeah,
interrupted
yeah.
mood
Go, go,
today.
go, go, go.
Sometimes I used to read this book and say, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that. They're not giving us trials here. They are telling us that none of these are good ideas, but I'll tell you what, my alcoholism, unattended reading this book could give me a whole bunch of things. Shit, if I'd have tried that, I'd have done better. Let me go and hire a bodyguard. Let me take someone on the business trip to celebrate with me. They'll be able to watch me. Alcoholism's tricky. Sometimes I've stated this the other day. When they make one of those things, we're off of the coast of Florida, 2,000 bales of cocaine wash up on the shore. I'm thinking if I found those, boo boo, you'd have another speaker today. I just got to be honest, because 2,000 bales is enough.
Rigorous honesty. I love it. Thanks, Bill. Then they outlined the spiritual answer, step 2, and program of action, steps 3 through to 12, which 100, this is a cool promise, 100 of them had followed successfully. Woohoo! That's an awesome promise. Though I had only been a nominal churchman, it's so important that he put it in here because this is just not good enough for a spiritual experience. I'm sorry. And I'm speaking to a lot of my be quick brothers and sisters in this room. If that was enough, you wouldn't be here with your bum on these seats, right? So if that's one of your prejudice, like I'm a churchgoer and like I don't need to do this work, I don't know. If you're sitting here with me and Bill, Ali and Claudia, I don't know, maybe that wasn't enough because we need a spiritual experience, a psychic change, a personality change, great shift in emotion, great displacement of emotions and ideas. And praying in church on once Sunday a week ain't gonna cut it. It didn't for me. I did try that. If you're an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, I don't know. I don't know.
That's a brilliant point. Alcoholics Anonymous does not teach a belief in God. It makes available an experience with God. And it's something very important you said. Why did all the holy people that I read about, the ones that saw God or at least experienced the heat or the light, blinding light, burning bush, parting of the Red Sea, why were they more than human? Because they weren't. It was the presentation. So I know I'll never be as holy as Moses, never love God as much as David, never be as faithful as Jeremiah or Isaiah. They were human beings. A great example. This is a revelation I will share. We have a prayer in our 11 step 12 and 12 that's called the St. Francis prayer. And one day it dawned on me, I don't think Frank was a saint all of his life. And I did a little study, and he was much like us. In fact, he left a family that he had resentment against. They had a very successful business. He ended up living off the street, doing his thing. He ended up going to prison. He got out and he had as much a battle with God as any of us. And one day he had an experience of spirit, and his life was revolutionized that he set out leper colonies all over Sicily. It's a fascinating story. It may not be true. You'll have to find the book to see if I'm telling you the truth, but hell, it sounds good to me, so I'll share it. But what I'm saying is he wasn't a saint till a couple hundred years after he was dead. Not only wasn't he one, he didn't even know he was one. So what happened is I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and something starts to happen in my life from the inside out. And then I get a different perspective on the stories they presented with me to try and get me to believe in God, is that we are the same as any of the people that have ever walked the earth. It's not like God gave someone a whole bunch of more favor, which appointed them to a position of holiness that they could have an experience that I could only hope to read about. Alcoholics Anonymous says, no, guys, if you're looking at the saints, you're looking at the wrong object. Look to the light behind the saints. Look to the light beyond the preachers, beyond the rabbis, beyond the people that are ordained to be holy, and go have an experience yourself with Almighty God. Because when the thinking changed, and you talk about it in the psychic change, I'm reading the instructions for step 11 with totally different eyes, and I never saw it. This becomes a working part of the mind, just like my ability to breathe. I don't think about it that I better breathe every 15 seconds. It's natural. It's automatic, like it says in step 10. This is a powerful thing that when my mind changes, if I keep the channel clean, object never goes back to unchanging. That's why they're able to say the problem has been removed. How is that possible? Because it's been overcome by spirit, and nothing can stand in the presence of God, nothing that's oppositional. But most of us have been under the influence of the presence of ourself, our little desires and lusts and wants and greeds, fueled with alcohol and dishonesty and resentment and fear. We hardly stand a chance. So maybe, just maybe, God didn't make us alcoholic. Maybe God allowed alcoholism with a solution that would lead us back to our rightful owner, Nadja. I'm a bond servant, baby.
Home. You know what, Bill? We get given, on page 62, 63, the employment contract. We get told, who we are. We're agents, we're spearheads, we're children of God. Of course, we go back to who we are. Like, that's who we are. We are connected. We have a power, an untapped unlimited, like, there's so many. I'm busy. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. You get me you get me amped up when you talk like that. You get me amped up. We're agents, guys. We're children. We get given a power greater than ourselves, a power to let people, lame people walk, dead people walk. I mean, look at this. We've got a bunch of dead people here who are alive again. Lame people pick up their mattresses. Yes, it sounds like stories out of another big, beautiful book that we know, but it legit happens. Do the 12-step work. You'll see it. You'll see it. There I go again. 12-step work. That's the lifeblood here. And here comes a caveat. But the program of action, steps 3 through to 12, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic. Yes, there's a lot of action here. We do not sit at home studying this beautiful book and something amazing is going to happen. Yes, something amazing will happen, but you're going to get tired of that experience and you're going to want more, because that thirst that we had for alcohol and crack cocaine and men and whatever else and food and drug gambling, you name it, when you come into this room, that thirst for God, you cannot satiate it. You will look for more. You will look for more. It just grows and grows and grows. But it's a pretty drastic program, guys. It revolves around a lot of action, a lot of action. And they're outlined in the book. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to sit there in quiet desperation, not knowing what you do. Take a number, reach out, ask someone. It takes you a couple of days. It doesn't take long to go through this work. If you remember Bill's story, Ebby told Bill what happened from when he came out of court with Roland and I can't remember the other one's name. Now I'm going on a tangent. It took him 2 months. 2 months before he carried the message to Bill. 2 months. Can go quicker. Can go quicker. But anyway, that's me. Here we go. It meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions, old ideas. Remember chapter 5, page 58? Some of us try to hold on to our old ideas and the result is nil. So yes, we've got to cast aside some of our ideas about who God is, or what we experienced as kids, or what we've seen on Sky News about the Catholic Church. You're going to have to put those things aside. Just put them aside. Okay? But the moment I made up my mind, willingness, you're going to need a lot of willingness in this program to go through with the process. I had the curious, okay, we're going to do another bounce. Hold on. I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. I'm going to come to you now, Bill. Let's just go check this out. What does it look like when your alcoholic condition is relieved? Page 267. There's many references about what recovered looks like and feels like and tastes like and smells like. But here's a lovely little, I went and found this from one of our people's stories in the back of the book, which is like a little mini meeting, little mini share without the fancy flyer. I'm rated as a modestly successful man. My stock of material goods isn't great. So sorry, guys, if you're thinking you're going to get a mansion and a Ferrari and a couple of bunny girls in the background, you're not. Probably not. But I found a fortune. But not, you just said I'm not going to be very rich. Oh, yes, you are, because you're going to find a fortune in friendships, courage, self-assurance, and honest appraisal of your own abilities. You're going to get a damn good idea of who you are and who you aren't, and you're going to be okay with that. Above all, I have gained the greatest thing accorded to any man, the love and understanding of a gracious God who has lifted me from the alcoholic scrap heap to a position of trust. Huh? Do you know how many people call me today to ask me to give them some, just to bounce ideas off? I was I was the most ridiculous human being on planet Earth. You couldn't rely on a thing I said. You never knew if I was going to pitch or when I was going to leave. And you also never knew if I was going to ever come back. I've been able to reap the rich rewards, wow, that come from showing a little love for others and from serving them as I can. 12 step. I told you it's going to be a 12-step kind of night. Bill?
Let's turn to page 63 in our book for a minute, keeping our finger on page 52. So that was brilliant, what you just read, that sentence. What I did is I got about 6 or 7 brand new big books with no highlighting, no markers. The binding hasn't been broke yet, because I discovered something that once I read something a certain way and mark it that way, it takes an explosion to get me to see it any other way. Guess
Yep.
what I just saw for the first time in 45 years, Nadja? But the moment I made up my mind, sounds like that's a decision. Is that right, Rob? Nod your head if you're not sleeping. Okay, he gave us the thumbs up for those on the tape recording. I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. Here's what happens when I make the decision that I'm going to quit running my life. All sorts of remarkable things follow. Could you imagine being convinced that you have an alcoholic mind, no return through human aid? You make a decision to come to AA and do what we say, and all of a sudden the problem seems to be relieved, and in fact it proves to be. That's pretty remarkable. However, I will take the Ferrari and the 2 bunny girls just for those, so I don't want you to think I'm lost my mind here.
You're bringing truckloads of honesty here tonight. I love it. All right, back to the book, page 42, right at the bottom. Yes, now we're rolling into some promises. We've got some more promises coming. Quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. I see a lot of people on a lot of WhatsApp groups that I'm on are like, oh, my boss, oh, my finances, oh, I can't, I need diet tablets, I need my gym contracts, I'm like gymming like mad. I see a lot of people talking about a lot of other issues. And when they're talking to me too, when we're just hanging out after the meeting, and I think to myself, but it says all. It says all our problems. So we can apply this program to all our problems, because I've come into these rooms, the drink problem was relieved, okay? And then there was the sex problem, the relationship problem. I was a serial dater. And I was looking to men to be my oxygen tanks. And then that was removed. I have applied this program to all my problems. Smoking, it became objectionable during step 6 and 7. And I asked God sincerely to take it from me. And I woke up 2 weeks later. It was gone. It was gone. All our problems. Bill.
Say, Bull, she's got she looks like a Chinese movie today, right? Like the words are coming out, and then 3 minutes later, her lips are moving. I don't know if you're on speed dial or something, but quite as important. I don't think it's the problems being solved that I question, that are overwhelming, and I think there's no relief. I think the misunderstanding is what they mean by spiritual principles. And then, of course, we have the well-meaning people in AA who don't want to read the book, but want to sit back and make Hallmark book cards and start naming the principles behind the steps, as if when you go into a meeting, you take the window shade and pull it from the wall and look behind it like there's principles there. If honesty is the best policy, but I'm used to lying to get my way, and all of a sudden I start telling the truth even when I'm afraid, and find out that the truth works better than a lie, no matter how disadvantageous it looks. I'm going to discover that that's going to probably eliminate some of my fear that I'm lying about because I'm afraid. I don't tell a lie for any other reason other than I've done something that's embarrassing, which is fear of what someone will see that I did, or afraid there's a consequence. Fear produces a need for me to lie. Unfortunately, lying produces more fear because now I've got to cover my tracks. Could you imagine if I walked through life, it talks about it in here, a design for living? Wouldn't it be kind of some type of sordid joke for the creator of the universe to place us all here together without a rule book? People say it seems like everyone else was born and had a rule book to get through life, and I didn't get one. I'm sure we all did. We just didn't pay attention to it. And the more I break the rules that are inside of me, the more disconnected from the source I become until it almost destroys me. And that innate spirit cannot be touched, cannot be hurt. It's pure. The nature of God deep within cries out to help for the creator. And the help's always there. You know what the problem is? I conditionally cry out for help. God, get me out of this, and he does. My mom got me out every time I was in trouble. God loves me more than my mom, if you can imagine that. But the reality is maybe I took credit or got enough relief from the trouble that I went back to doing things my way till the next time I needed God. Maybe that's why Christmas only comes once a year. Other people
And
celebrate God every day.
and that's what we're going to talk about right now. This is a way of living, infinitely more satisfying, daily reprieve. We do not get a day off from this. We do not get a day off from the spiritual way of life. Because you can, and then you can start relying on the 911 God that Bill was talking about. That little finite God, you got to give me a little bit of something and I'll give you a little bit of something. That God gets smashed when you make contact with it every single day with every living breath that you've got. And it comes through practice. I hope more useful than the life I lived before. My old manner of life was by no means a bad one. Remember, Fred, only from first visit to the hospital to actually conceding, it was a year. Okay. It's not the case for me. Okay. This is not the case for me at all. Mine is like 3.5 decades. But I would not exchange its best moments for the worst I have now. I would not listen to what he says here. Listen here. I would not go back to it, even if I could. Even if I could. The step 10 promises say that sanity returns. We can't go back to this life, even if and I've been in this program. It was removed, the desire was removed, that grace of God was over me. Bill says it does. The further away I move from it, it does, the shadow of it gets less. But to be in this program with no desire to drink because it's been removed, and then no answer, no solution to the feeling that I've got that I can't bear being sober. Anyway, then we'll get to that. That's a jumping off point. It's not a place you want to be. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He'd only felt the first nip of the ringer. He just had a little bit of shame and a little bit of like doctors scoffing at him and just a little nip of the ringer. A lot of us come in here, we build a structure up, we pull it down on our lives and our families and our colleagues, and the ripples are endless. And when we come out of that tornado cellar, it's just debris. Pylons upside down, cars are turned on their roof, houses all around us, and that's us. That's the work we do. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really commence to solve their problems. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff member of a world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to some of us. What you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight is, in my opinion, correct. But as to you two of you men whose stories I have heard, there is no doubt in my mind that you were 100% hopeless. That's the 15 times that word appears in this book, apart from divine help. We are beyond human aid. beyond human aid, the A, B's, and C's, the pertinent ideas. No human could relieve me of my alcoholism. Had you offered yourself as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you if I'd been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have profound respect for the spiritual approach in such cases as yours. For most cases, there is virtually no other solution. Once more, the alcoholic, line it out, put your name there. Nadia can at certain times has no effective medical defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither Nadia nor any other human being can provide such a defense. Her defense must come from a higher power. Thank you. That's us for the evening.